How's it going? This is the One Jame, and today we're doing the Innistrad Crimson Vow day number 4. We're going to be introducing a lot of new cards and some cards that might, how should I say this, impact the meta in a very powerful way. Let's go ahead and get started with the first one. We have Magma Pummeler. It's going to be an X and 2 red elemental creature. Magma Pummeler enters the battlefield with X+1/+1 counters on it. If damage would be dealt to Magma Pummeler while it has a +1/+1 counter on it, prevent that damage or remove that many +1/+1 counters from Magma Pummeler. When one or more counters are removed this way, Magma Pummeler deals that much damage to any target. So not only can this card take a lot of damage, and it removes a 1/1 counter, but it can also deal a lot of damage also. It isn't uncommon. It might be in some kind of maybe some Teamer ramp deck or something like that. But I think this card definitely has potential. Wouldn't be surprised if it saw play. Moving on to Radiant Grace is a 1 white aura. Enchantment. Enchanted creature gets +1/+0 and has vigilance. When an enchanted creature dies, return this to the battlefield transformed under your control attached to target opponent. Turns into Radiant Restrictions, which enchantment or a curse. Enchanted player controls enter the battlefield tapped. So it's basically like Authority of the Consoles on the other side that's also an aura. So it'll be played in aura-based decks, Voltron-based decks against other aggro decks, potentially. This card could definitely see play in Historic if you're Historic. In like either the black-white auras deck or white-blue auras against other aggro decks. I think this card has a real chance to be played in that deck. Vigilance is also pretty powerful in those decks as well. Alarm the Cathars is a 1 and 2 white sorcery. Until end of turn, target creature gets +3/+3. Up to one other target creature gets +2/+2. And up to one other target creature gets +1/+1. They each gain vigilance until the end of turn. Kind of like a nice anthem effect for one turn. We call these, I guess it could be termed as like an overrun. It doesn't give trample in white. I don't know if this card will see play, but it is pretty good in draft if you play draft. Moving on to Resistance Squad. It's 2 and a white for human soldier creature. Whenever Resistance Squad enters the battlefield, if you control another human, draw a card. Now, this is kind of unassuming since it is an uncommon. The rate is okay. It's a 3 mana 3/2. But maybe you can play this in your kind of like green-white Coco Humans deck to gain card advantage. I actually wouldn't be surprised if this card was played a little bit, but it might be too underpowered for Historic. But in Standard, maybe this card sees play if there's like a Humans or some kind of aggro deck that wants extra draw power and advantage out of it. Moving on to Alpax Piper is a 4 mana 2/2, is a human werewolf. It can't be countered, similar to Toski. You can pay 1 under green and tap it. You may put a creature card from your hand to the battlefield. Untap Alpax Piper. It's a wolf if it's a wolf or werewolf. Activate only as a sorcery. Holy crap. This is like a, what do you call that? Show and tell? Interesting. Moving on to Wild Tune Howler. If it's nighttime, it's a werewolf. Whenever this card enters the battlefield or transforms into Wild Tune Howler, look at the top 6 cards of your library. That's a lot of cards. Winota-esque, if you will. You may reveal a creature card from them and put it into your hand. Okay, it doesn't go to the battlefield. Oh my goodness, if it went to the battlefield. Put the rest of the cards on the bottom of your library in a random order. Okay, this card's pretty strong. It is a 4 mana 2/2. It takes the slot of the new 4. If you didn't see the 4 mana 4/4 green creature from before, check out my last video. It's in that one, video number 3. But this one here, can't be countered, so it's good against control decks. I mean, there's definitely some high potential in this, especially if you play something like the Tovolar's Huntmaster as a 6 mana werewolf. You can just put that on the battlefield for 1 under green and tap it, and it also untaps itself. Definitely high potential. This is kind of one of those cards that I think is like either really, really good in a specific deck or just not good enough. Zansyad, thanks for the raid. Make sure to check out Zansyad's YouTube channel. Also has a YouTube channel that puts deck text on there as well, so make sure to check that out. ZANSYED on YouTube. Moving on to Necro Duality. It's a 4 mana enchantment. Whenever a non-token zombie enters the battlefield under your control, create a token that's a copy of that creature. Whenever non-token zombie. Okay. So this is going to be really, really good, actually, now that I think about it. They're in the blue-black zombie precon. Just slot this card in there easily. Create a token of non-token zombies, easily played in that deck. Very good card in that deck. I mean, if you want to play Constructed, I don't know how good this card is going to be. It's a 4-mana enchantment. Those don't really go over well in Constructed unless it's like something like, I don't know, Felidar Retreat or something. And even then, in current Standard, that card's not really played as often. So we'll have to see about this card. I think it has high potential. Definitely going in that Commander deck, though. Moving on to Lantern Flare. It's a 2-mana instant with cleave for X, red, white. And if you don't listen closely, you'll miss what this card actually does. I had to read this card like 8 times before I actually read it correctly today. A Lantern Flare deals X damage to target creature or planeswalker, and you gain X life. X is the number of creatures you can. Well, you say to yourself, there's no X in this cost. What does it do when it's not cleaved? So basically, all this card says is deal damage to a target creature or planeswalker equal to the number of creatures you can. That's what the card says. But when you pay cleave cost, it now turns into an X spell. And it's a Boros X spell, X in red, white, and it turns into a card that says Lantern Flare does X damage to target creature or planeswalker, and you gain X life. So Lightning Helix with extra mana on top. So I don't know how good this card is going to be. There's already a MDFC land that does the same thing, so maybe this doesn't quite make the cut, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was played either. It also can't hit players, so downside. Moving on to Cemetery Prowler, and I think this card is extremely good, and this is the reason that when I said in the intro, might actually shape the meta a little bit. Cemetery Prowler is one of those cards. 1 and double green for a wolf. Has Vigilance, so 3 mana, 3/4 Vigilance is already good. Whenever Cemetery Prowler enters the battlefield or attacks, exile a card from a graveyard, which is already good. You want graveyard exile similar to a Scavenging Ooze. Spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. All spells. Each card type they share with cards exile with Cemetery. Yeah. Yep. You heard that correctly. You heard it correctly. And moving on. You can pause it and look at that for yourself if you want to think about more things to do with this card, but I don't even think I have to say anything more about it. Groom's Finery. The mana artifact equipment. It's +2/+0. It gets an additional +0/+2 and has Death Touch as long as an equipment named Bride's Gown is attached to a creature you control, equipped too. So a little bit of a cool limited combo with Groom's Finery and Bride's Gown. Moving on to Cloaked Cadet. It's a 5-mana 2/4 human ranger with training. Whenever this creature attacks with another creature with greater power, put a 1/1 counter on this creature. Maybe it's a 3/5. Whenever 1 or more +1/+1 counters are put on 1 or more humans you control, draw a card. Ability triggers only once each. So, yeah, green-white humans. This is 5 mana, so maybe it's only a limited card, but pretty good limited card at that. Red Feast Demon is a 7-mana demon with flying. At the beginning of your end step, sacrifice a non-demon creature. If you do, create a token that's a copy of Dreadfast Demon. So usually, you can sacrifice things and make like 2 copies of the you sacrificed. This, you sacrifice a creature that's a non-demon, and you make another Dreadfast Demon. So, 7 mana for a 6/6, and then you get another 6/6. Like, you're definitely taking over the game at that point. I don't know what deck this can slot into, but it's a pretty cool reanimation target. Standard. It will also, like, basically be unbeatable in Limited. Twinblade Geist is a 2-mana 1/1 double strike. Disturb for 2 and a white. They're just a 2-mana 2/2 with one of it being first strike on one side. Turns into Twinblade Invocation when you bring it back out of the graveyard. As an aura, enchanted creature has double strike. If it would be put into a graveyard from anywhere, exile it instead. So, pretty cool. It turns into an aura after the Twinblade Geist dies, and double strike is a pretty good, really, really good word to have. So, depends on how good double strike is in your deck, but I wouldn't be surprised if it saw play, especially if you buff this card with Luminarch Aspirant in Standard. Double strike could come in handy if you buff this Twin. Moving on to Brine Comer. It's a 3-mana 1/1 spirit for Azorius colors. Whenever Brine Comer enters the battlefield or becomes a target of an aura spell, create a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying with serve for 2. For white and a blue. Now, this is a card I'll probably most likely be slotting into my artifact and equipment deck, my Bant deck from the Adventures in the Forgotten Realms commander deck. That's the commander deck that I'm playing right now. This is a pretty good slot in for that deck. Play an aura on it, you make a 1/1. Play an aura, make another 1/1. On the other side, when you bring it back for 2 mana, it comes out as an aura to enchant creature. Whenever Brian Brown Gift enters the battlefield or enchanted creature, target of an aura spell, create a 1/1 white spirit token with flying. If Brian Brown Gift will be put into a graveyard from anywhere, exile it instead. Alright, so you can think about this as one or two ways. You can put this in your aura deck, or you can use this as kind of like a Lingering Souls. When you play it on the front end, you make a 1/1, so you get 2 1/1s. Granted, one of them isn't flying. If you happen to be playing a Mill Yourself deck, and you mill this, just bring it back out and makes a 1/1. Like 2 1/1s. But like, maybe it turns into kind of that kind of card. Maybe like a Jeskai Phoenix deck in Historic or Modern. So a couple different ways to use this card, which I like. Moving on to Cultivator Colossus. It's a 7 mana creature, plant beast. Don't see a plant beast every day. With trample. Cultivator Colossus power and toughness are each number of lands you control, or to the tree folk tokens that red and 7 battlefield. Whenever Cultivator Colossus enters the battlefield, you may put a land from your hand onto the battlefield tapped. Not only do you have to have 7 mana, but you also have another land in your hand. Which is interesting. If you do draw a card and repeat the process. Wait, that means red and 7's insane with this card. Like, it is 7 mana, but like, say you play red and 7, you're already playing a ramp deck anyway. You put a bunch of lands in your hand, play a land, play Colossus, play a 1 land from your hand, draw a card, and then play another land from your hand, draw a card, and you can just like keep doing that. That's pretty good. I mean, Ren, Felidar, Scute Swarm, Green Shenanigans. Calling your name, I guess. Moving on to Mischievous Geist. The 2 mana 1/1. It's a cat spirit. So cute. Look at that cat. Not only is the cat a spirit, which is weird, which is interesting, not weird, but interesting. But also the ball of yarn is a spirit too. Did anyone ever mention the fact that this ball of yarn is also ethereal? Interesting. Or maybe the ball of yarn's part of the cat. Anyways, whenever Mischievous Geist deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. Oh. That's pretty good. Disturb for 2 and a blue. Cat-like Curiosity is the other side. Turns into an aura to enchant a creature. Whenever enchant a creature deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. Oh, nice. If it would be put into a graveyard from anywhere, exile it instead. Wow. Kind of get 2 instances of this. Not only does the creature draw cards, but when it dies, you can bring it back later on, attached to another creature, and they also draw cards. So, kind of a 2-in-1 package here. So not only do you get the cat, but the ball of yarn also draws cards. Moving on to Falconwreath Forebear is a 2 and a black for a vampire creature with flying. Falconwreath Forebear can't block, so pretty similar to like your zombie token. Sometimes most of them can't block. Whenever Falconwreath Forebear deals combat damage to a player, create a blood token. Okay. Pay a black, sacrifice 2 blood tokens, return Falconwreath Forebear from your graveyard to the battlefield. Oh. For only 1 black? It is not, and then you can do it at instant speed. It doesn't say use this only as a sorcery. But if you play like the red-black vampire make blood tokens deck, this card's really good. 3 mana 3/1. It can't block, unfortunately. But it creates blood tokens when it deals combat damage. And it also has flying. Did I miss that? It has flying. Create blood tokens easily because it has flying. Then you can sacrifice 2 and bring it back and you just fly again. I mean, this card's pretty good. Alright, moving on to the next one. Is Imprisonment is a 3 mana aura enchant creature. Enchant creature, stutter, can't attack or block. Pay 5 mana, exile enchanted creature, create a blood token. You've seen this card being printed, not this specific card, but a card like that, printed in other sets. Like, enchanted creature can't block for white, really good limited card. Then you can pay a certain amount of mana to exile the card. Been done once or twice before. Like the most recent one of memory is Dreadful Apathy right here. and that came out in Theros. It was a really, really, really good card in Theros Limited. So this card I expect to be the same. This also creates a blood token, which you can pay 1 and tap it and discard a card, sacrifice the artifact, and draw a card. So very, very, very good card. Moving on to Wedding Security. Is a 5 mana with for double black vampire soldier. Whenever Wedding Security attacks, you may sacrifice a blood token. If you do, put a 1/1 counter on Wedding Security and draw a card. Okay. I don't think this is going to be good and constructed because usually cards that have to attack to use their abilities, especially at 5 mana, are pretty bad. But in limited, this card draws a card and also utilizes your blood tokens. Utilizing your blood tokens to draw additional cards is going to be. Moving on to House of Haunted Dolls, a 5 mana artifact. 1 and tap it. Exile a creature card from your graveyard. Create a copy of the exiled card. Okay. But it's a 0/0 artifact construct creature token in addition to its other types. With this creature gets +1/+1 for each artifact. Oh, so it just makes constructs. But it also copies the card. Creature gains haste until end of turn. Actually, only whenever you could cast a source. Alright, so it makes haste constructs that also retain the power and toughness of the creature that you exiled from your graveyard. Okay, so it's kind of like a God Pharaoh's Gift, but also copy. I guess it is kind of God Pharaoh's Gift, but it's like worse. All right, this could see play, but it doesn't come out of your deck or graveyard or something like that because of God Pharaoh's Gift's other 3 mana cards. So, kind of like a fixed God Pharaoh's Gift. Bloodsworn Squire is a 4 mana. I guess you could use that card in a Reanimator deck too. Bloodsworn Squire is a 4 mana 3/3 vampire soldier. You can pay 1 and a black and discard a card. Notably, you don't have to tap this to do that. Bloodsworn Squire gains indestructible till end of turn and tap it. Then, if there are 4 or more creature cards in your graveyard, transform Bloodsworn Squire. So, kind of like a black vampire sacrificey deck. Turns into Bloodsworn Knight. This still is a vampire knight now instead of a soldier. Bloodsworn's Knight power and toughness are each equal to the number of creature cards in your graveyard. Pay 1 and a black, discard a card. Bloodsworn Knight gains indestructible till end of turn, tap it. I mean, indestructible is pretty good. At 4 mana for a 3/3, it's probably like pretty expensive. But maybe it's like really good and limited. I could see this card being a limited bomb, especially because like there's gonna be a bunch of cards in your graveyard. All right, Diver's Scab is a 5 mana zombie or Scab, however you say that. Exploit. When this creature enters the battlefield, you may sacrifice a creature. When Diver, Scab, or Scab exploits a creature, target creature's owner puts it on top or bottom of their library. Okay. So you sacrifice the creature and then put it on top if you want it. I mean, this is pretty good in limited. I don't see it being played at all in constructed, but I like this card in limited. Retrieve is a 3 mana sorcery. Return up to 1 target creature card and up to 1 target non-creature permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. Exile Retrieve. Turn up to 1 target creature and up to 1 target non-creature permanent. Okay, they made sure that you can't loop retrieves. Graveyard to your hand. I don't see this card seeing play. I don't see this card seeing play. Not bad in limited since it is technically value 2 for 1. Moving on to a Braid. Now this card is something that might change the format also. Braid is a 1 and a red instant. If you haven't seen this before, it's a reprint. Choose 1. It deals 3 damage to target creature or destroy target artifact. Notably, this set doesn't say creature or planeswalker since it was printed a long time ago, and cards don't say that. Cards used to not say that, but now they say creature or but this card is super, super, super strong. If you haven't played with a Braid before, you should definitely try this card out. It's kind of like Prismatic Command, to where it has the mode to like deal damage and kill an artifact, or maybe even like a card like Tangle Trap, where you can kill an artifact or kill a creature with flying. This card deals 3 damage to any creature, and it's not 2 damage; it's 3 damage, which is very important to stand right now. So this card is definitely obviously. Syncopate is also a reprint, X in blue, for an instant counter target spell unless the controller pays X. If that spell is counted this way, exile it instead of putting it into his owner's graveyard. I like the fact that this was printed in this set because there's a lot of cards that utilize the graveyard. A lot of Disturb cards. Also in Standard, there's a lot of cards that with flashback, Deluge, Memory Deluge, flashback. You can go ahead and counter that and exile it to where they can't use it. There's also cards in Historic. I mean, this card's also already in Historic. People don't play it in Historic because it's a very higher power level. But for Standard, I would say that this does a good job in counterspell decks to be able to kind of regain back the value of their opponent's cards having flashback or just. I like the fact that it was reprinted. Moving on to Scattered Thoughts. The 4-mana instant, 3 and a blue. Look at the top 4 cards of your library, put 2 of those cards into your hand, and the rest into your graveyard. Now, this is an instant which makes it pretty powerful. Looking at the top 4 and putting 2 into your hand, it is basically a Memory Deluge without the flashback. You put the rest in your graveyard. If you're playing a Leer deck, you definitely want to be utilizing Scattered Thoughts. I would say if you're playing a Leer deck that's not based in red, because if you play it like Grixis Leer, you might be tempted to play card that the double red card that discards a card and draws 2 cards and make 2 treasure tokens, but got the name off the top of my head. But this card, it definitely fuels your graveyard for Leer if you play a blue-black based Leer. Unexpected Windfall is the name of the card I was thinking of. Thank you, chat. Laid to Rest is a 4-mana enchantment, 3 and a green. Whenever a human you control dies, draw a card. Oh. Okay, just like that. Whenever a creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it dies, you gain 2 life. Wow. Okay. I mean, it's probably too expensive to play in Historic because you want to be playing Collected Company with 4 mana, but maybe it is played since you gain 2 life with 1/1 counters on it, and whenever they die, draw a card. So, like, maybe it's played in like a green-white humans deck in Historic as draw power if your stuff dies. But in Standard, it's probably played. If you want to build humans in Standard, you probably play this card. Especially because Luminarch Aspirant is a human and other things that put 1/1 counters on your stuff are humans. So, pretty good. I would say probably maybe like a 1 or 2 of in Standard sideboards. Also, this card's green and not white for some reason. Moving on. Cursive Hospitality is a 2 and a red enchantment or a curse enchant player. Creatures attacking enchanted players. Wait, what? Creatures attacking enchanted player have trample. Oh. Wow. Whenever a creature deals combat damage to enchanted player, that player exiles the top card of their library. Until end of turn, that creature's controller may play that card, and they may spend mana as though it were a mana of any color to cast the spell. What? Okay. Also does lands. Alright, so say on turn 1 you play a 1-drop, and say you're playing mono red. Play a 1-drop. It even works in Gruul too. Play a 1-drop. Then you play a 2-drop. Then you play a 3-drop, or maybe another 2-drop or whatever. Doesn't matter, whatever you have in your hand. On turn 4, you play Curse, give everything trample, attack your opponent with 3 things, they block one of them, 2 of them get through or whatever, since it has trample, and then you get to look at the top 2 cards of their library. It's 1 for each creature, and if it's a land and a spell, you get to play the land and the spell. Also, giving all your stuff trample's huge. There's a lot of decks in the format right now in Standard where if you just had trample, you'd get to attack through their little baby chump blockers, like a mono black snow type decks or green black snow, whatever. The eye twitch decks, you just want, and the Lolth decks, you just want to be able to have trample that you can attack through the Lolth tokens and kill the Lolth. You know, so like this card's important. It might not be the best card ever, but it definitely is important to the meta. Moving on to All-in Block Escort. It's a 1 white creature human monk. 1 mana white card, you say, with Vigilance. Sacrifice All-in Block Escort. Target creature you control the +1/+1 counter on it. Gains lifelink and indestructible till end of turn. Wow. Alright, well this reminds me of Dauntless Bodyguard, which is definitely right here in the Thesaurus, and Selfless Savior. So anytime a 1-mana white card comes out that resembles Selfless Savior or Dauntless Bodyguard, it is definitely a 4 of 1-drop in mono white decks. So you're going to see a lot of Allenbach Escort in white decks. Moving on to Ascendant Pack Leader. This is another card that's like, okay, well, we already saw that really good 3 watched earlier in the video, which you should have if you got this far. Also, if you got this far, make sure to put in the comment section, lead the pack. Okay, so I know you watched this far. Lead the pack. Anyways, Ascendant Pack Leader is a 1-mana 2/1. Okay, already 1-mana 2/1, already strong, I understand. Wait till you hear the rest of this. The Wolf. Ascendant Pack Leader enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it if you control a permanent with mana value 4 or greater. Not only good when you draw it on turn 1, it's also good if you have the 4-mana 4/4 haste trample on the battlefield. It's already good if you have a Seeker's Chariot on the battlefield. It's already good if you have Ren and 7 on the battlefield, which you're already playing all those cards if you're playing mono green. So it enters the battlefield as a 3/2 for 1 mana already. And then there's another part of text on this. Whenever you cast a spell with mana value 4 or greater, okay, cool, every card I just mentioned, put a 1/1 counter on Ascendant Pack Leader. So there's nothing in the Thesaurus for this, but this card is basically like whatever the 1-mana 1/1 is that gets a +1/+1 counter if your creature enters the battlefield with more power than it. Basically that, but like sometimes better, sometimes worse. It'll be better than that card if you're playing werewolves or wolves in your deck, and it's also better than that card late game. Pelt Collector. Better than Pelt Collector in the late game, and it's better than Pelt Collector if you're playing wolves or werewolves, but usually Pelt Collector will be better than this card, but it's really close. And any card that's really close to Pelt Collector is really close for a standard mono green deck or green red werewolves. This card is insane. Automatic 4 of. Make sure you get this card. It's insane. Moving on to Distracting Geist with 3-mana 2/1 Spirit. Whenever Distracting Geist attacks, tap target creature defending player controls. That's good in a white deck. They're for 4 and a white. The other side is an aura, enchant creature. Enchanted creature has whenever this creature attacks, tap target creature player controls. So same text. If Clever Distraction would be put into a graveyard from anywhere, exile it instead. I mean, if this card had either flying or another keyword and was not a 2/1 and was like a 3/2 or something, I would say this card's really good. I would say this card's basically being a 2/1 puts this into pretty good and limited category. Moving on to Hamlet Vanguard is a 3-mana 1/1 human warrior with Ward 2. Whenever this creature becomes a target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, counter it unless that player has mana. Hamlet Vanguard enters the battlefield with 2 +1/+1 on it for each other non-token human control. So green-white humans is definitely going to be a thing in Standard. You have 2 humans on the battlefield, and you play this. My understanding is you get 4 1/1 counters on this. So it becomes a 3-mana 5/5 with Ward 2. That's crazy. And say you have no 1-drop play, right? And turn 2 you play like Luminarch Aspirant, for example. That's going to be a 4 of in every human set. That gets a 1/1 counter, putting it to a 2/2. On your turn, cast this card. You have 1 other human. That puts 2 1/1 counters on this. So it's a 3-mana 3/3 with Ward 2, which is already good, especially since it's a human. So, yeah, I think this card's really good. It doesn't have Trample or anything, but Ward makes it really good against control. But then again, green-white humans might already have too many 3-drops for this card to be played, so I'm going to give this a maybe, maybe not. Alright, Inspired Idea is a 2 and a blue sorcery. Cleave for 5. You may cast it for its cleave cost. If you do, remove the words in their brackets. So if you don't cleave this card, draw 3 cards, then your maximum hand size is reduced by 3 for the rest of the game. Alright, so reducing your hand size from 7 to 4 is really bad, but it is a divination that draws an extra card. 3 mana draw 3 is absurd in Standard. I mean, even like cards just aren't printed that say 3 mana, draw 3. But reducing your maximum hand size is awful. But if you're in a pinch and you happen to top deck this with a lot of mana, 3 mana, draw 3 right off the bat, instant gratification, really, really, really good. Leave for 5 is just draw 3 cards, period. Which is kind of on rate for what standard is. That's pretty busted. I don't know if this card will be played though, but drawing 3 cards for 3 means I wouldn't be surprised if this card. Lantern Bearer is a 1 mana 1/1 flyer. Oh. Okay, 1 mana 1/1 flyers are really good in blue-based tempo decks. Disturb for 2 and a blue. Turns into an aura that enchants a creature. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1 and has flying. And if it would be put into a graveyard, exile it instead. Okay, I mean, 3 mana for +1/+1 and flying is not good, but it being attached to another creature you're already playing as a aura-based tempo strategy, which is definitely played, like blue-white auras is definitely a deck in Historic. Maybe there's something like that in Standard. Who knows? But 1 mana 1/1 flyer is kind of where you want to be if you're playing a deck like that. Moving on to Whispering Wizard. 3 and a blue for a human wizard. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, create a 1/1 white spirit creature token when flying. This ability only triggers once each turn. So it's kind of like a... What would I equate this card to? Murmuring Mystic? Oh, crap, it's right here. Trust me, I didn't see that before I said Murmuring Mystic. So it's basically a Murmuring Mystic, but it's not really. So instead of a 1/5 like Murmuring Mystic is, it's a 3/2. It's a more aggressive Murmuring Mystic, but it can only trigger once per turn. And it dies a lot easier. So I would say this card is not going to be played in Constructed, especially because you have cards like Smoldering Egg that are already a thing. So I would say this is pretty good and limited, though. But anyways, that is all, my friends. That is all the cards that we have for today. We'll be back tomorrow. Maybe not exactly tomorrow, but back for the next one. This is episode 4. We will be doing an episode 5 and doing a next episode for every time we get new spoilers until the set is completed. But if you like this type of thing, go ahead and watch our next video right over here. If you'd like to see the previous one, if you haven't seen that before, or see another one of our decks. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you in the next video.